I had just finished another level of my favorite game. One of those, like, shoot the bubble games. And another ad popped up. I know the companies that design these games need to make money somehow, but the frequent ads, they get annoying really fast. The only good thing about most of them is they're pretty short. This one was different, though. It convinced me to watch the ad because of its familiar tune. I recognized it the moment I heard those somber violins play. It was Chopin's Funeral March. Anyone who's ever watched a cartoon, if you're my age, is sure to have heard that tune before. It's always played whenever a character is about to meet his doom. Dun 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 dun. Almost like the Emperor's March. As the music progressed, a noose slowly descended, swaying back and forth, until it reached the middle of the screen. The title of the game started to come into focus, letter by letter, while random photos of people's faces appeared, with their heads centered in the loop on the noose. They were all cropped so that the rope fit perfectly around their necks. And then, holy shit, the last photo to appear in the noose was the photo I used for my Facebook profile. It just cropped like the others. Now, I know it's not a major stretch for a game to do something like that, but I wasn't expecting it. It really upped the cool factor for me. So by the time my picture was displayed, the title of the game had fully appeared, and the music had stopped. Hangman, it declared, in an Old West-style font, each letter hanging from a rope. Kudos to the game's marketing department. Seriously, the ad managed to pique my interest. Eager to learn more, I tapped the screen expecting to be redirected to the App Store, where I could read an overview of the game, see some reviews, watch a video or something. But I was actually surprised when I was redirected to the game's website instead. I don't think I've ever encountered a game that redirected me straight to a website. I figured there was some sort of contract that forced users to go to the provider's official app store. I wasn't going to let that deter me from playing, though. None of the game was half as cool as it looked. The only information listed on the website was the following. You have been hired as the town's new hangman. Executions are scheduled every 3 days. In order to keep your job, you must execute your target within 72 hours. Do you have what it takes to man the gallows? A little cheesy, but kinda cool. The text was followed by several photos showing how to pick your targets and how to go about hanging them. From what I gathered, this is one of those augmented reality games that used your phone's camera. When you first start the game, you select your target from a list called The Condemned. Once you've made your selection, the target's picture is shown on the bottom left of your screen with a countdown timer. If you tap the picture, you're taken to a map that shows your location along with the projected location of the target. It's supposed to be accurate within like 1,000 feet or something. Now, once you've located your target in the real world, you're supposed to tap on the noose icon, which would open your phone's camera app, with the minor addition of there being a CGI noose hanging in the middle of the screen. You then hold your phone so that your target's head appears in the middle of the noose for 3 seconds. If you succeed in doing so, the camera takes a picture, and you will have successfully hung your target. Now, they have one like that for like this monster chasing game, only instead of a noose, you have like these colored balls you throw at people. Now, after you've hung 3 targets, you are given the choice of being promoted to the next level or retiring. Not sure what kind of rewards you get for retiring, but there were 3 levels listed: Hangman, Executioner, and Reaper. That sounds pretty cool. The game site also features a leaderboard that has a few gamer tags listed as Hangman, but no one yet listed as Executioner. No one listed as Reaper. I suspected that was because the game was recently released and no one had the time to advance yet. Now, I love dart games, and this one sounded like a lot of fun. At least fun for someone with a twisted sense of humor like me. So I quickly tapped the download button, excited to start playing. Now, normally, I'd be telling all my friends about the game, but not this time. Oh no. I wanted to get a head start and be the first person of my friends to make it to Reaper on the leaderboard. And with as new as the game is, I might actually be the first person ever to get it. So as I'm waiting for the game to download, the typical user agreement pops up. It's a dozen pages of the same legal nonsense presented with every game these days. Does anyone even read those? I had no intention of starting now. I quickly scrolled to the bottom of the text and clicked the agree box, which closed the pop-up box and allowed the game to finish downloading. Moments later, I was prompted to enter my gamer tag before I could continue. Now, it's cheesy, but I entered the tag I've been using since 6th grade. Namred Nels. Or, if you can see it on the screen, it's Slender Man, spelled backwards. I know, cheesy, but what can I say? I went through a phase when I was younger. Like most of my friends, I was obsessed with that character. Now, I grew out of it, but the name stuck. Namred Nels. I like it. Once the game accepted my tag, I was ready to play. The first thing to pop up was a group of photos of people with the title, The Condemned, at the top of the screen. There are about a dozen photos shown, and I needed to pick one so that I could hang him. Pretty cool. Now, while I'm trying to decide, unavailable stamp appears over one of the photos. I assumed that meant someone else had already chosen that person, which is good to know. At least I won't be competing against other players to hang the same person. Now, since this was my initial attempt to play the game, I decided to just go with the first name on the list. A person whose tag was listed as Negan8. Yeah, how original, I thought. As you can guess, he looked like a total asshat, right down to his bleached blonde crew cut and the sports jersey he was wearing. I had no idea what team the jersey was from, and I didn't care to find out. The fact was, he looked like someone I wouldn't like, but I was sure going to enjoy hanging him. So I tapped Negan8's picture and confirmed him as my choice. Eager to get started, I tapped his picture again to determine his location. It looked like he was over in the shopping district near downtown. If I had to guess, I'd say he's probably at the mall hanging out with his buddies. They should be easy to find. Asshats like that walk around with an army of clones. They act like they own the place. So I look at the time. It's almost 4 o'clock. Now, if Negan8's at the mall, I doubt he'll be leaving anytime soon. It's Friday. He's probably going to stay there till late night. Now, I wouldn't be able to get out of my apartment till after 5 at the earliest. Now, I probably won't make it to the mall around 6. But I should still have plenty of time to track him down and hang him. Assuming he's still at the mall by the time I get there. I kept myself occupied by watching TV while I waited for my brother to get home with the car. I frequently checked the Hangman app to make sure Negan8 was where I expected him to be. As I suspected, his location didn't change by more than a few hundred feet, so he's still in the radius of the mall. My brother gets home, I get the car, and I drive to the mall as quick as I can, and I parked close to the food court. That's where most of the people my age tend to hang out on Friday nights, and it's where I figured I had the best chance of finding Negan8. It was the most central location to various spots that the app had him placed at over the past 2 hours while I was watching. Now, the food court is designed in sort of a U shape, with the doors I entered being in the bottom center and access to the rest of the mall being at the top. I walked around the food court twice without finding him, so I decided to sit down and check his location on the app. Now, as far as I could tell, he was somewhere within a couple thousand feet of me, if the app's margin for error is accurate. Since he wasn't in the food court, that meant he had to be in one of the stores nearby. I got up and walked over to the store directory to try to determine which of these shops would be most likely for him to be interested in. I have to admit, I'm really liking the game so far. I kind of feel like a detective trying to track down a criminal. And the chances are pretty high, in my opinion, that Negan 8 probably was a criminal of some sort. Asshats tend to be. I amused myself by thinking I'm doing the world a favor by hanging him. Wonder if I could get bonus points for hanging his posse. So I narrow him down to 3 different shops. My number 1 choice was Champs, a store that sold sports clothing. I figured an asshat like Negan couldn't own enough sports jerseys and was probably always on the lookout for more. My number 2 choice was Lids, a store that sold baseball caps, well, sports caps. I never understood how a store like that could survive in the mall. Do they really sell that many caps, or are they just ridiculously expensive? Either way, I figure my target likely owns a few, and he probably wears them backwards. And my final choice was GameStop, because it's in the vicinity, and everyone I know owns a PlayStation or an Xbox, or both. So he probably did. So I left the food court and headed towards Champs, intending to walk by and see if my target's inside. But when I get there, I notice the store's pretty big, so I do a walkthrough. He's not there. Alright, I headed on my next destination, Lids, but that store is tiny, and I could see he wasn't there. I mean, hell, I could see the interior well before I got there. So that just leaves GameStop. So I stopped for a second and pulled out my phone to check my target's current location, which according to the game hadn't changed. He was somewhere nearby. I just had to find him. So I continued on my way to the game store, which took me past the south entrance on the opposite side of the mall from the food court. Near the entrance is a large decorative fountain filled with coins. It was from there that I heard a group of guys suddenly start laughing, really obnoxiously. Naturally, I turned to see what was so funny, and wasn't all that surprised to see it was my target sitting on the edge of the fountain with his 3 cronies standing in front of him laughing. So I changed course and started walking around to the opposite side of the fountain, trying to get a good vantage point for my phone's camera. I hate them all, and I did not want to hang out. I just wanted to hang Negan and get the hell out of there as soon as possible. Crowds aren't my thing, and it's Friday night, and it's starting to fill with shoppers. "Shut up," I heard Negan say to the trio standing before him. "You'd suck as a detective," Beanpole taunted. "You're like Inspector Gadget." "Let's get out of here," Pimpleface whined. "Your time ran out like an hour ago. What are you still looking for?" "It's 'cause he has the hots for," Chubby Guy said. "He likes those nerdy girls." All 3 of them are laughing. Negan just sits there glaring at him like an asshat. Interesting, I thought to myself. It seems Negan may be playing Hangman as well, and he failed to hang his first target. Wonder if that's what got him put on the list as one of the choices under the condemned. Maybe if you don't get your target, you become condemned. Well, that's not going to happen to me. So I walked around the fountain until I came to a bench that gave me a decent vantage point to sit and aim my camera at Negan 8, without being too obvious. Now, I wasn't able to hear the rest of the conversation from where I was sitting, but from the looks on their faces, it's pretty obvious his friends were busting his balls and giving him a hard time. I opened the game and tapped on the news icon, which opens my camera app, and I hold the phone at an angle like I'm reading a text message, right? But I'm trying to figure out how to angle it to get Negan's fat head in the middle of the noose. Once I had him lined up, the countdown started. Number 3, in red appears at the bottom of the screen. And the number 3 is replaced by the number 2. Negan 8's hands flew up to his neck, grasping at something. And looking at my phone, his hands are perfectly lined up with the game-generated noose on the screen. It was like he could feel it and he was trying to remove it. Beanpole, Chubby, and Pimple Face. They laugh at first, but then they start to panic when they realize their friend's distress isn't an act. Negan stands up as the counter changes to 1 and his face is changing colors. Without realizing it, I also stood up, which kept his head locked into my phone's noose. I froze. I watched in horror as the counter changed from 1 to 0 and Negan fell into the fountain. His friends stood there and stared nearby as shoppers and security rushed to the fallen kid's aid. That's what broke me out of my paralysis. I put my phone in my pocket, I quickly turned and walked out of the south entrance, got in my car. I didn't look at my phone until I'm sitting in my car, and when I did, what I saw made me sick to my stomach. There's a CGI cut screen of an executioner hanging a man with the words, "Congratulations, you did it." Underneath, that was, "Click here to choose your next target." And the picture my phone had taken of Negan 8 was superimposed over the hanging man's head. I drove around aimlessly for an hour or 3, just numb, trying to make sense of what happened. Trying to figure it out. Find some way to accept it and move on. There is no silver lining. When I finally got home, my brother's sitting on the couch playing Xbox. "Where the hell'd you go, man?" he asked without even looking away from the screen. "I thought you were just going to the mall." Out. That's all I could say. And start heading to my room. "Hey, I was meaning to ask you, have you heard of that new app, that new game, Hangman?" I froze. I turned towards him. "Why?" "Oh, I downloaded it a few days ago and tried it out. Running around trying to take a picture of someone? That's dumb. I was just going to tell you not to bother with it." I went to my room, shut the door, and locked it, and opened the Hangman app. "Choose your next target." I tapped the button, and I wasn't surprised by what I saw. There was a person listed on the condemned page. MJR Grief. Always hated that gamer tag. My brother thought it was clever because our last name was Grief, and he liked being a pain in the ass when he played games. Therefore, Grief. It's a play on words. I guess I should have read that user agreement before I started playing. Don't Install the Hangman app by Ken Lewis.